gamers, gals, non-binary pals. Today we come to leech content from an actually good content creator. Shout out to Twitter threads and the 50th one, I guess. You've got Joshua Schmidt. We need a nuclear ban list. I want to hear what Jay Schmidt's take on the format is. Obviously, as like a pro player in large quotations, pro players have very varying opinions on what they want to see out of Yu-Gi-Oh! Relative to the average casual competitive player. So I do want to see what this man's been cooking up in his kitchen. I want to hear his thoughts, and in my opinion, I'm a big fan of killing Snake Eyes with a rock because oh my god, this format is so unfun. This would be like a really good format, in short, if just Snake Eye didn't exist and maybe Tenpai didn't have a field spell. I love Tenpai, like don't get me wrong, but holy shit, that field spell is actually just scam city. So let's give it a watch.
Now that we have taken a look at what is about to happen in Rage of the Abyss with this most recent OCG metagame report basically releasing this abomination of a deck onto the OCG.
The Molchummy Fuamoko, the normal summon Fiendsmith, the Diabelle's continuous spells, plus it's now an Omni Negate. This is the most scam shit I've ever seen in my life. Like, this is not fair. Are you telling me that one card is gonna be allowed to do this? Oh, but Stevie, they don't have max sheet. Congratulations, we have triple Snake Eye Ash, plus triple Bonfire, and triple Wanted, and triple Diabelle Star still. They don't even run Temple anymore. Why would they? Why play more bricks when you could just play more one card FTKs? The main reason you played Temple was because you kind of wanted like a second card for your Poplar to convert into, and it gave you like some cute little plays and being able to like rescale your Flamberge, and it was like really nice for setting up like future combo turns for like follow-up, and like you could bring back the IP. You know, it was very cute. All that goes out the window the second you read like the new like Snake Eye Diabelle Star cards. These cards are actually crimes. Like just fuck it, bro. Who cares? We're just gonna play broken cards now. Why? Who cares about relatively fair gameplay? Relatively, like Snake Eye Diabelle Star wasn't the most broken shit on earth.
I want to have a little bit of a discussion about this upcoming August Forbidden and Limited list with you guys. I personally think this is something that needs to be prevented.
By the way,
the Examiner cards basically just fill the
legal.
holes that the consistency hits have left for Snake Eyes in the OCG, leaving to a just as consistent and even more powerful version of Snake Eyes. Believe it or not, this is an even more powerful version of Snake Eye Fiendsmith that we have in the TCG at the moment, because it has basically the same amount of starters, more extenders, more powerful end boards, more Omni Negates from the Examiner cards, all that. I have done a ban list discussion, I think like 6 weeks ago or something. That was before I had played the European Championships with Infinite Forbidden, so that one was pre-info. So I wanted to redo it because we do know the ban list is happening in August, and I just want to talk about a couple of different things that are going on with the game right now. And I want to start by saying that I have kind of changed my mind on how I approached Snake Eye in the latest discussion. What I proposed was a banning of original sinful spoils. One of the main arguments that people make when they say they are not gonna hit Snake Eye as hard in this upcoming Forbidden and Limited list, or that it's more of a prediction, right? But people are saying they still need to sell Diabelle Star in the quarter century Bonanza, and they want to sell the Mega Tins that is gonna have all the Diabelle Star stuff in it. On the one hand, I understand this. On the other hand, you still have to think about the health of the game. In the long term, is it gonna make you more money if you leave Snake Eye alone to sell the tins, but then people are incredibly annoyed by Snake Eye for a couple more months?
I think, yeah. Like, as fucked up and dystopian as it sounds, people are probably still gonna buy the Megatins just because, like, theoretically, if every Snake Eye card is reprinted and the whole Diabelle Star is printed, people are just gonna buy the Megatins just so that they could be like, I could buy, like, the Snake Eye Diabelle Star core for, like, $100, and, like, I could just buy the Fiendsmith shit for, like, maybe $250, $300. It's like, oh, it's like, it's cheaper. It's cheaper in large quotations, and, like, people are still gonna be, like, pissy about the game, but like more people have access to like a tier 1 deck. It was kind of like that with Adamancipator, where Adamancipator was legal for like a very long time. Adamancipator format was like 9 fucking months if you guys weren't aware. It dodged the first ban list, and then it got banned alongside like VFE, I'm pretty sure. But the way how Konami structured that was Adamancipator got like a bunch of reprints in like the Megatins, I'm pretty sure. I could just be gaslighting myself into believing so because 2021 was so long ago and I refuse to unlock those core horrifying memories. But Adamantimators got reprinted like the Megatons, and then like next week, Konami just like killed. They did that with the Zodiacs, they did that with Dragon Rulers. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that with the Snake Eye cards.
I would argue for the overall health of the game, it's better if you hit Snake Eye now, like seriously. The reason why I have moved away from this original Sinful Spoils idea is because I think there is a world where you can hit Snake Eyes, but you can still make people interested in the Diabellstar cards. Think of Diabellstar in other decks that aren't doing anything super crazy. There are plenty of decks that are just not being played much at the moment, but that can still use Diabellstar plus original Sinful Spoils. Rescue Ace, Fire King, even something like Infernoid are completely viable and strong Yu-Gi-Oh decks that are just being overshadowed by the dominance of Snake Eyes. Even TGs, out of all things, right? There's other decks that in the past have made great use of Diabellstar wanted original Sinful Spoils, but are just overshadowed by what you can do. Why would I summon Ponix with original when I can summon Snake Eye Ash and do what Snake Eye Ash does, right?
Okay, the main issue with that is like, sure, there are cool decks that are able to do a lot with like the Diabellstar combo, but the main issue is that, like, let's not pretend that OSS Summon Hydrant into Turbulence set 4 was exactly healthy, you know what I mean? Like, Rescue Ace could still do the entire Fiendsmith combo. It's not like difficult, it's just like you have to go a little bit out of the way and maybe have like an extra extender, but it's still very easy to do. And like, yeah, you could say like, oh, we should keep OSS and ban all the Snake Eye cards. Like, the problem is that like these decks are still fire decks at the end of the day, and they still are gonna have like the Snake Eye support and blah blah. So like this card just forever has to be gone. And like saying, oh, other decks aren't as bad, it's kind of like comparing like a nuclear bomb to a hydrogen bomb. Like, yeah, sure, one on paper is technically better, but let's not pretend like the other one wasn't ruining formats.
A quote-unquote elegant way is to just leave original alone, kill Snake Eye. No questions asked. On this ban list, we're gonna kill Snake Eye. We're gonna kill it, okay? Don't worry. But if we leave original intact and we leave Diabellstar out there, I feel like you can still play it. And those decks at the same time also get more viable because we're gonna kill Snake Eye. That's my way of thinking about it. Let me know if you agree with it. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think that could be an approach. And for that, this guy needs to go, or this guy needs to go. I am past the point where I'm gonna throw any of these cards in limited, because at this point, I don't think limiting anything is not gonna do it for Snake Eye. Look at the OCG right now. They're playing one Flamberge already. They're not even playing Temple anymore. That's another thing I want to bring up. People are suggesting banning Temple. Temple is an incredibly powerful card. The deck does not go anywhere if they ban Temple. The deck is still insane. You can play around Nibiru 10 other ways. Temple is not the card we need to hit. I don't think they're going to ban both. I think one of the two is somewhat realistic though. I don't know what to say other than I hope something drastic happens to Snake Eye, because I'm convinced Snake Eye is not necessary to sell those cards. I think Azamina is still going to be played. I think Diabellstar is still going to be played. So one of these two, I think, needs to go. I'm convinced. If they ban...
They should just both be banned. Like, both of these cards are just so disgustingly good. Flamberge is the card that says, here's a way to play around Nibiru, as well as spot removal, as well as a way to summon like IP Masquerena. Like, cool. And Poplar just says, Snake Eye Ash is now an FTK card. Like, have fun, buddy. And funnily enough, even if you ban Poplar, like, Snake Eye Ash is still kind of an FTK, because you just go Snake Eye Ash, add Birch, and then you special the Birch, and then like use Snake Eye Ash set. Like, it's not as broken, obviously, but it's still pretty fucking good.
One of those, I'm not sure if we need to do anything else to Snake Eye. Even though I would totally be on board with a Ash limit or wanted limit, I think the OCG clearly shows that those are not doing anything, because this is still the most dominant deck in the OCG. Ban something out of Snake Eye. Don't just limit something that we can just replace with another broken engine. Speaking of broken engines, let's talk about what would happen in a hypothetical world where they hit Snake Eye in a meaningful way. Whether they kill it or not, different topic, but we're expecting a hit to Snake Eye, right? We're demanding a hit to Snake Eye. What happens? Yubel is still incredibly powerful. Tenpai is incredibly powerful. The Fiendsmith engine is also very, very powerful. I personally don't think they are gonna hurt Fiendsmith in a significant way. My favorite approach, honestly, if I had to make this decision, I would ban Lurie. However, I think this is one of the ones that goes into the wishful thinking category. And I made this category specifically to put some cards that I think would be the good decision for the health of the game, but I don't think they will do it because of other like monetary reasons, right? I think banning Fabled Lurie would be a pretty elegant way to hit the Fiendsmith cards in their core like power, but still leaving them as a good engine. And the same is true for Moon of the Closed Heaven. Moon of the Closed Heaven is just a common from Infinite Forbidden. No one is going to be losing tons of money because they're going to ban Closed Heaven. Part of me just thinks they want the Fiendsmith cards to be as powerful as they are. I think they want it to be good in a lot of different decks, which is why this card is needed. I personally would ban this card in a heartbeat. That's why I'm putting it in wishful thinking, because I wish they would do it. I don't personally believe they will. Something that I think everyone is predicting is for Beatrice to be banned. This is something.
Beatrice is like the #1 card, which everyone is just like, you know how like every format people just kind of look at the ban list and there's like, wait, like X card isn't banned yet? Like why? Like the #1 example I could give like a couple of months ago was Isolde. When Isolde finally got the axe, people were like, okay, fucking thank God. But Beatrice is like the current iteration of that, where it's just like, why is it Beatrice banned? Like this card has never done anything fair. Like sure, you could like say, oh, it should be erotic to only send BAs, or like, oh, it should only be able to be made off of like Dante or blah 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 blah. Like Beatrice is just this super silly card where just like nothing Beatrice is doing will ever be fair, even if it's just at best a Foolish Burial. Like Foolish Burial in the extra deck for any card as a quick effect. Like this card was scamming for time with Scattershot. This card is searching Snake Eye Ash by sending OSS. This card was sending like Rainbow Bridge of Salvation in tier limit, so you could add like the field spell. You guys remember that shit? Like oh my god. And even in lesser degrees, you can play like Fiendsmith Labyrinth, and you can go like Beatrice send a furniture, or Beatrice send like rollback plus like the Mayakashi trap. Like it's so disgusting. It's so silly. Why is it here? You should be taken to hell.
Thing I won't even elaborate that much on. The things that this card does in any deck that uses the Fiendsmith cards is completely insane. Fiendsmith is an incredibly powerful engine even without Beatrice existing. They have so many other options of what they can do. They can still make early Appaloosa. They can still make Wave Hiking Caesar. They can still make a Volzar Lars. They are still incredibly efficient. So banning Beatrice will not hurt the viability of Fiendsmith whatsoever. It'll just make it less toxic. Part of me wants Wave Hiking Caesar to be banned. I think this one is wishful thinking though. I would do it, but I don't think they will. And now...
yeah, like Caesar is like a good hit, because having like double Solemn Warning in your extra deck is just so disgusting. I'm not even joking. You want to beat Tenpai? Like 99% of it just involves summon Caesar. Good job, you did it. You negate the Chundra, and then you negate the Sangan Kaiman, and you're just like, we tried.
Oh, let's talk about Yubel. The reason why I don't love the Yubel deck is because Yubel honestly feels like a watered down version of Snake Eye. In my mind, what one Nightmare Throne does is not that different conceptually from what one Snake Eye Ash does, right? Like the only difference, Yubel has less starters and less powerful like extenders as well, right? Like I think it's more realistic that you can interrupt Yubel. They have more choke points basically, because when your Samsara D Lotus gets ashed and you can't prevent it, that's kind of hard to replace. You need like multiple cards to make up for that. Still, only because the deck is a watered down version of Snake Eye does not mean it's okay, because Snake Eyes is incredibly powerful. Yubel is just a little bit worse. And so I do wish that they would do something about Yubel. Here's my problem. I think it's incredibly hard to hit Yubel. A lot of the cards are very, very new. Fiendsmith is a large part of the deck, so the only thing that's left is hitting Yubel itself. For the health of the game, or game design purposes, this is a phenomenal thing, right? Phantom to 1 is incredibly smart game design-wise. That is something that should happen, in my opinion. I think that's wishful thinking. I don't think that's happening, but I still wanted to mention it. Honestly,
so like Joshua is 100% right, where Yubel basically is just worse Snake Eye. Like Yubel is able to make a much better board, because you are able to make like Faruja, you're able to make like Phantom of Yubel to interact with very specific decks, blah 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 blah. Like you guys get the idea. But the problem is Yubel is so much easier to disrupt, because like you Ash Samsara D Lotus, that deck like almost loses on the spot unless they have the Fiendsmith cards. You like stop track fact, like, congratulations, that deck also loses unless it has Yubel cards. Yubel's extension is different enough from Snake Eyes in the sense where if you are able to actually like stop the extension, they can't just like immediately convert it into like some dumbass stupid advantage where they're able to just be like, haha, I summoned Moon of the Closed Sky Among Us. And their starters are way more susceptible to interruption, like because Samsara D Lotus like tributes itself, like Phantom of Yubel can be like impermed, and like that card's basically a vanilla without like Nightmare Throne, etc, etc. You guys get the idea. But like it's still a very disgusting combo deck, especially with like Phantom of Yubel being just fuck it, Miracle Fusion, why not? Like the amount of times I've just seen someone just like, oh, I guess I'll just hard fuse this Yubel and like Dark Beckoning Beast that I hard opened into like Phantom of Yubel and like normal summon Samsara D Lotus. And I'm just like, you're just so fucking good at Yu-Gi-Oh. Like shit, man, you got me.
This should have said you can only summon this once per turn anyways. They fumbled the bag when they didn't put that sentence on that card. We all agree on this. I've never met an individual who didn't agree with this statement. I feel like every time Phantom of Yubel is mentioned, the first thing someone says is should have been once per turn. So this card is the perfect card to put to limited, but it's also the most expensive card in the Yubel archetype. So that's why I think it's wishful thinking for this to happen right away. Which leaves us in this very awkward spot. We have to think about what we do to Yubel if we can't really hit Phantom, and we also can't really expect the Fiendsmith cards to get hit. What do? I didn't even include Nightmare Throne, but I guess you could limit Nightmare Throne. I wouldn't hate that, actually. But that's also kind of expensive, and it's also not super old. And everything else that's left feels like it is super odd for it to be on the ban. Like, for example, I think banning Yama, like, let me finish, okay? Calm down. But banning Yama would hit the deck in a meaningful way, right? And
so this is like a very easy way to be like, oh, like not a lot of these cards need to be banned. The problem is like a lot of these cards are kind of just very weird, very silly cards that aren't really the main problem. Like, are you gonna look at a format and be like, yes, skill drain is the problem of Snake Eye format, or like, yeah, prosperity, or like IP. These are hits that would make the decks in the format way less homogenous and like way more fun and able to be interacted with. And you can't just like be like, haha, I'm gonna shit out Appaloosa IP and I'm just gonna jizz on your carpet. But these are cards that are also like strong enough that they are extremely frustrating to play against, because again, people are just gonna be like, haha, any two fiends, boom, Yama. Like opening the Spirit Gates is just incidental Yubel support. Dangan summoning is fucking degenerate. Albion is like gimmick puppet machine. Like these cards aren't destroying the format, but these cards are very much super duper unhealthy and should not be legal. But like they're just so far below what Snake Eye Ash and like the Flamberge and like Phantom of Yubel and blah blah blah, those sort of cards are doing, that it's just very frustrating, you know? It's just a very frustrating position to be in for both players of like relatively rogue decks like Yubel and Senpai and Branded or whatever, versus just like Snake Eye, because you know for a fact your shit's gonna get hit too.
I hate how Unchained is just catching strays. Unchained did nothing wrong. Unchained was such a cool deck in the format.
Unchained did everything wrong.
It's not Unchained's fault that Yubel is abusing Yama in its combo. All the other Yubel cards are quote-unquote unhittable. I really don't like this, but I do think it is a more realistic hit than Phantom of Yubel to 1, but still, I would not do this. And then there's another card that I frequently see brought up, and that is Opening of the Spirit Gates as like a limit or ban. And I gotta say, this feels kind of similar to Yama in the sense that, dude, the Sacred Beast deck didn't do anything wrong. But we've talked through most of the options that we have for hitting Yubel, and this seems like the one that's like the most realistic, quote unquote, like limiting opening. I wouldn't hate it. It's a very weird position for Yubel. Tenpai, I think pretty smooth. I want this card to be limited. I think this is the one time where I agree with the OCG on something. They have limited this card. Tenpai is still incredibly powerful over there, so clearly it does not kill the deck. It is by far the hardest card to interact with. With one copy, you at least eliminate the chance of them having a second one, right? One interaction with a spell trap against Tenpai, you can get rid of the field spell, and then you can use your other interactions to actually interact with their field. Because
one of the frustrating parts about dealing with Sangan summoning is like, let's say your opponent like activates Sangan summoning, and you're just like, you're kind of immediately put into this game of chicken where if you're like Snake Eye, you're like, okay, am I going to like immediately shotgun this IP Masquerada to convert into an SP to banish the Sangan summoning and immediately lose the game if they have a second one, or Forbidden Droplet, or like Chalice or whatever? Or B, are you going to let it resolved and immediately lose the game if they have a normal summon. Like, if you have Ash Blossom in IP, you are in like the shittiest position known to man, because you're just like, I guess I'm gonna get fucking Trident Dragon OTK. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just like no winning with this deck.
In the TCG, honestly, it's incredibly likely that they can even find a second one, because they got Terraforming, 3 copies of the Field Spell, 3 copies of Prosperity, and the card is even searchable. Set rotation, they've been using that as well. Sangan Summoning, I think, is a perfect card to be at 1. And unironically, I have not many other issues with specific decks in the format. We're going to talk about some extra deck staples and other staples. I think it's time for Skill Drain. Realistically, this gets limited. I would ban it. One of the reasons why Skill Drain is so powerful is because they just made a lot of decks that can ignore your floodgates on your own turn. That's just another thing about Snake Eye and also White Forest. The ability to continuously send away your face-up trap cards to just keep playing on your own turn. I don't know if it was intended, but it's incredibly strong. So I think Skill Drain needs to be here. Whether you're looking at meta decks, if you're looking at more rogue-ish decks, whether you're looking at stun decks, this card is everywhere. It's ruining games, it auto wins games. This card needs to be on the ban list. I would prefer if it was banned. My prediction is Limit. And here we have 2 cards that I think are wishful thinking. Calamity and Albion are 2 cards that I would like to see banned. My logic here, why I'm putting them into wishful thinking, is because if they didn't do that on the last ban list or the ban list before that, then why would they do it exactly now? Because these are like the only thing that really makes branded viable at the moment. It's the only thing that makes people want to play Centurion. In my opinion, the time was like a year ago. I'm just including these because they should be banned. I think...
Like, yeah, like, again, like, it does loop into the point where, like, a bunch of stray, random, shitty rogue decks are just not going to be able to be viable just because, like, Albion is the gimmick puppet machine, and that's going to be super toxic if Snake Eye gets banned. And, like, Branded all of a sudden might become the best combo deck in the format just because, you know, shit's out of fucking Albion. I don't think, like, Hot Red needs to be banned because I think that decks that are trying to summon Hot Red aren't very good. You know what I mean? Like, these decks aren't very playable. Like, they're kind of poopy, but I do think that these cards are, again, super unhealthy and shouldn't exist within our format.
Crossout should be limited. I think this card is frustrating to play against. I think Crossout has no business being at 3, especially when we've already realized this problem with Called by the Grave, right? Like, we've put Called by the Grave to 1 years ago, and people still say Called by should be banned, but we've kind of like made our peace with the fact that Called by the Grave is limited. And Crossout is even seeing more play at the moment than Called by, because Crossout has this thing going for it where if you're playing 15 hand traps yourself, you can cross out some cards that can't be called by, like Nibiru and Imperm. And also, if you have the same hand trap in your hand, you are not locking yourself out of it. Like, if I have an Ash and my opponent has an Ash, I would rather cross out the Ash than called by the Ash. In the way modern Yu-Gi-Oh is being played with those hand traps and such, Crossout is a more powerful card than Called by the Grave. And Crossout is even more frustrating when, for example, you're playing a mirror match and you don't have a hand trap, so your opponent gets to play, and then your opponent has Crossout, sets it, and completely fucks you up on your turn. Because he takes out a super incredible, like, engine piece from your deck, so you don't even have a chance to play into their board. It plays way too much into the concept of going first is too strong in Yu-Gi-Oh. I feel like it's time for Crossout because it's been out, you know, they've sold the initial print, they've sold the reprints. This thing was in 2 megatons. Wasn't it even in Rarity Collection? I think it was. It's time. Crossout needs to go to 1. As much as it pains me to say it, I've included this card in probably every single ban list discussion I've had.
No hit.
I think Shifter is wishful thinking at this point. Let me clarify. I would have put this card on the ban list in the blink of an eye. Here's why I feel like they want to keep this card around. This is one of the few cards that is making rogue decks playable by being toxic, which is not the right way to make rogue decks viable, in my opinion. But at least with the power level that the game is at currently, this is the kind of card that might keep someone playing who really hates like Snake Eye or Yubel or whatever. I don't like that this is how it is, but I think Shifter is going to stay. Please don't twist my words. I don't think this is a good logic. I don't agree with this logic, but that's why I'm putting it into wishful thinking, right? Like, I would hit it. Don't make it like I'm justifying Shifter. I'm not. I'm just trying to make a prediction, and I don't think they're going to hit it this time around. And I am happy to be wrong. Prosperity
My main defense for Shifter is that Shifter is a very good card at what it does in very specific decks. Shifter is not a card which you could just slap into any single deck. Shifter is not a deck where you could just like play Snake Eye and be like, oh, I'm gonna put in a Shifter here. Or you're gonna play Pearly and I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna put in a Shifter here. Or play like Runic Stun and be like, oh, I'm gonna put... You just can't do that. You can, but it's gonna be like really bad. The main issue is that some decks do so much with their graveyard, is that like in some formats, some decks do so much with their graveyard, or some decks need some sort of enabling in regards to getting cards banished, that Shifter, I feel, is a very, very, I wouldn't say fair, but I would say that Shifter is a decent duct tape ass method in regards to, we are going to create a hand trap that sort of turns off the graveyard in a very specific way. We like kind of had that with like the graveyard shufflers, but turns out those were a little too good. But I think that Shifter being just like this very, very two-sided, nobody is touching their graveyard today, as well as the fact that, again, like even decks that can pseudo play it don't really like it. Like think of Tenpai or Madolche. Like, these are decks that like Shifter, but you don't really want to be shifted. You know what I mean? You turn off Fadra, you turn off your Bident Dragon. Like sure, you can ban the shit off Hoot Cake, but everything else is fucked. I think that Shifter is fine. I just wish we had like a better version of it that kind of stuck around. It's just that in my opinion, there's no easy way to create a card that's like anti-graveyard that's gonna be good enough in today's format, because we already have like anti-graveyard cards in the form of like Skullmeister or Gamma to an extent, but there's a reason why people are playing Shifter over like those cards, because those cards are 1-for-1. The Shifter says, haha, here's everything, because you can only negate so much. Why not just negate all of it? Fuck it, for 2 turns.
Is, I think, in a similar spot as Crossout Designator, where I'm not sure maybe the logic why they kept it around for so long, because they felt like they wanted to reprint it a couple more times, and now it's time. Hopefully this card goes to 1. You're still gonna play it at 1. It's still gonna be a really powerful card at 1. I don't think it has any business being at 3. Every time there's a problematic card like Skill Drain, Prosperity amplifies that problem because it can be played in so many decks, and because it can find those cards so consistently, while also just being an incredibly consistency card. Like if you don't need a Floodgate right now, but you need a starter, Prosperity is gonna find it. If you need a Board Breaker going second, Prosperity is gonna find it. It's such a powerful card, and it has...
So you're saying retrain the Macrocosmos monsters to not be smelly doo-doo and give them a hand trap that places Macrocosmos? Yeah, there should be a hand trap that just places Di-Fi. Unironically, that would probably be a little fair, but at the same time, like, your opponent could just, like, make a Nightmare Phoenix, or, like, make an SP Little Knight. Like, there's so many ways to make these cards good, but just nothing does it like Shifter. Shifter's just the guy. Shifter's just him.
No business being at 3. Rivalry, this stands for all of these floodgates that are limited. In my head, I'm a little confused as to why all these cards are at 1 specifically. This is just something that in my head doesn't really make sense. My only guess is that they want some amount of floodgates to be in the game. I think it's weird. I think they won't ban Rivalry. I think it's wishful thinking that they ban more floodgates. I'm very happy if they at least hit Skill Drain. That is the minimum I'm expecting towards floodgates. Look, if this was my list, this card would be up here in an instance.
Go.
Okay,
Appaloosa's
I'm just trying to wrap my head around whether they will actually do it or they won't. Now, I will say, I also did not expect them to ban Baron the Fleur. I did not expect them to ban Borreload Savage Dragon. I like the fact that they are starting to hit generic extra monsters, and it makes me hopeful that they hit Appo as well. I am frustrated with Appaloosa for a couple of reasons. I hate how Appaloosa is never where it ends, right? Like most of the decks don't make an Appo and then pass, because if that was the case, then I would be okay with it. You can play against just Appo, that's fine. The problem is what happens after Appo, because most of the decks summon Appo and then keep going, right? They keep going and keep going and keep going. It's like out of like the whole combo spreadsheet, there's like 50 steps and Appo is like step 5. Make Appo insulate the rest of your combo from all of your opponent's hand traps except for Imperm, and then keep cooking, right? And then...
Yeah, Appaloosa, like ever since its release, has just never been doing anything fair. Like the easiest example I could give was like when Nibiru came out and everyone's like, OMG, combo's dead, bat chest. And then Rising Rampage or whatever it was called came out and like Appaloosa got dropped. Then everyone's just like, oh, we're just playing Danger Thunder Dragon all over again with like Crusadias. Like you made the LPs and then like you summoned the Hot Red and then you made like the Argapane and summoned like the Among Us Dragon and then you were just like shitting out advantage out the board and then you played a fucking prize card, the Chaos Armageddon Dragon. Like holy shit, this shit was so disgustingly unfair. Like nobody had fun playing. Like Appaloosa's just never been a fun card. It's always been like this card that just does, it never says, this is a boss monster. This is a card that just says, hi, I'm called by the grave. Numbers 2 through like 800. It's fucked.
At the end, you have your Snake Eyes board, or your Yubel board, or your Fiendsmith whatever board, your Memento board, whatever it is, you have that, plus you have Apple. And suddenly, the Appaloosa that you could maybe have outed with a single board breaker spell is no longer outable because those other cards make Omni Negates next to it. I think Appaloosa is incredibly problematic if it's paired with Omni Negates. Appaloosa itself stops all the monsters in your opponent's hand. The Omni Negates stop your opponent's spells. So how do you out Apple? That's right, you don't. I think Appaloosa will be banned. I don't know if it's exactly right now. You guys are right. The card was just reprinted in Rarity Collection 2.
And
but remember Baron? Baron was printed in Rarity Collection 1, right? That was the set that finally made Baron affordable. And it still got banned. So I don't think it's impossible for them to hit Appaloosa. My problem with IP Masquerena is the following, and I want you guys to think about this for a second. I don't remember the last time I was genuinely annoyed by my opponent ending on IP Masquerena if it wasn't summoned off of Flamberge. Am I tripping? Honestly, I can't even think of a different deck that really ends on IP Masquerena right now. Sprites? Yeah, okay. I think Sprites is not a problem.
Mimighoul!
Personally, and this is under the condition that we hit Snake Eyes massively, I think I'm okay with IP Masquerena. I think IP Masquerena, in terms of what it provides, is a strong end board piece, but I don't think it is overly powerful. I think what
main issue with like IP Masquerena is that it's not that like in other decks it's broken or whatever. The main issue with like IP is that in Snake Eye, it gives you a form of interaction that's able to dodge board breakers like Forbidden Droplet or Dark Ruler no more. Like if you Dark Ruler a Snake Eye board, it just doesn't really matter because they're able to just go field spell, summon the IP Masquerena out, and they're still able to like play and do like the little dumbass fucking SP little night combos or just make another Appaloosa. I don't know. Like who cares what they're doing? They're fucking Snake Eye players. But in other decks, like yeah, it's completely fine. Like if Snake Eye got slaughtered, IP shouldn't need a hit.
Makes it powerful is that you summon it, you link it off for Princess, you bring back Flamberge, you put it in your spell and trap zone, it comes out for free on your opponent's turn, and it also lets you link off the stupid Flamberge Dragon, that you can get your floating effects and all that kind of stuff, right? Like I think IP Masquerena in its core is fine. I think Flamberge is what makes it too powerful. Promethean Princess, on the other hand, I think is a card that will inevitably be banned. This card does too much. And here is the thing. I think there is a world where this entire ban list looks different. They could do something like ban IP Masquerena and ban Promethean Princess. And maybe also Appaloosa, which takes away a lot of the end board pieces from Snake Eyes, right? I don't think it would be enough. I think they would have to do other things, which is why specifically I'm doing it this way around. But that's what they tried last time. I would not prefer this. My take on Promethean Princess is the following. I think this card needs to be banned eventually, but once again, kind of similar to IP Masquerena, whenever I summon Promethean Princess in like Salamangrate or Fire King, it feels like a good card, but it doesn't feel like something that I would ban. I think I would like to see a world where they just get rid of Snake Eye and people can actually play Princess in other fire decks and maybe have a room to compete with it. I don't think this is going to happen yet, but I think it will eventually. This card is kind of like, it's giving me Sprite Elf vibes. And then the last card I wanted to include just because I felt like it was Druid Worm. I just included this because I felt like this card is at 1 in the OCG. This card is at 1 in Master Duel. Bystials are incredibly popular ever since they came out. Druid Worm to 1 just... It feels right to me. And you can still play up to 8 Bystials. If Bystials are good, you can play enough Bystials. On purpose, I did not include anything that could come off the ban list. Quite frankly, I think it is more important right now to talk about what needs to happen with the things that are legal. Because obviously, they could bring back cards, but that's not going to fix the game, right? Where's Fountain? Where it belongs, not on the discussion. And once again, before we round off on this discussion, personally, at least, for me, this upcoming August ban list is very important. Sometimes there are ban lists where you think to yourself, or where I think to myself, you know, it'd be nice if we got some changes, but it also isn't incredibly important. But sometimes I feel like the game is in a spot where it needs some help. And right now is one of those spots. Do you think we have a nuclear ban list like in 2015 format? I think it's kind of the same situation. I think it has to happen. Whether it's now or in 2 months or in 3 months, whatever. But we're gonna need it soon. We need a little bit of a nuke on some of the things that have been happening in the...
Yeah, 100%. Like, the game has reached this very critical breaking point where people are just so fucking sick of this format. We're so sick of like the past maybe like 9 months of just, hi, here's a fire deck, hi, here's a fire deck, hi, here's a fire deck, hi, here's a broken combo deck, hi, here's a broken fire combo deck. Like, it's so disgusting and annoying to play against. Basically, what's reiterated is like the same deck over and over and over. Like Fire King was basically just neutered Snake Eye, and that shit was absolutely disgusting. Then like people optimized Snake Eye and figured out how to play that deck well, and then like people are still playing Snake Eye. Like people are like, OMG, Baron and Savage and Among Us, and that was just like, wow, awesome, wicked. But anyways, I think that Joshua Schmidt's made a pretty good ban list. God bless that Shifter's never getting banned. Shoutouts to Konami and the Schmitterson. But yeah, most of these look like pretty normal hits. I think that maybe some of the limits could just straight up be bans. Like, I think like Skill Drain and like Cross Out and Pod Prosperity could just straight up be banned. I don't think they need to be like at 1 because like consistency reasons and blah 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 blah. I think that for the most part, good list, Schmitterson. Very proud of you. God bless Shifter, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Tell me your favorite ban list takes in the comment section down below. And yeah, even Schmitterson agrees that Protoss isn't the problem. Protoss isn't even on this list. Shout out to our Ritual Beast players, bro. Wham, meta deck clean, Protoss, shut up. Even Joshua Schmidt doesn't even think that's the problem. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.